That's right. Your body and brain interact as a bit of a thermostat system where if you put something cold on the surface of your body, your brain, a little cluster of neurons in the so-called medial preoptic area, act as a thermostat and say, the external of my body is cold, and therefore I'm going to heat up my core body temperature. So this is a little bit paradoxical. People think, if you get into cold water or an ice bath, your body temperature is going to drop. And indeed, that's true if you stay in for a while. But if you just get in for about 1 to 3 minutes or under the cold shower for 1 to 3 minutes, your core body temperature will increase. So then when you get out of that cold water, your body temperature is increasing at a rate, at a slope that's steeper than it would otherwise, and you're going to feel more alert. It also has the advantage of increasing not just adrenaline, but dopamine, which is a molecule involved in motivation, focus, etc. So this is great for waking up. So we've got sunlight, we've got temperature triggered by cold water, and we have exercise. One of the best ways to increase your core body temperature early in the day is to do exercise. Now, some of you might choose to do your full-blown workout for the day first thing when you wake up in the morning. I always say the best time to exercise, at least what the research points to, is immediately when you wake up in the morning, or 3 hours after waking, or 11 hours after waking. But that's really getting down into optimization for sake of muscular strength and grip strength, and it's very hard to give a strict prescriptive. Here's what I suggest. If you want to be alert early in the day and you want to sleep great at night, get that bright sunlight, get into some cold water, and if you don't want to get into some cold water, try and get some movement. It could be a walk so you can get your sunlight exposure while you're taking a walk first thing in the morning. It could be a light jog. It could be skipping rope. These days, I skip rope for about 10 minutes or 20 minutes while looking at the sun. So I'm trying to layer in these different things for waking up. And then I take a cold shower afterwards. This is what I've been doing as of lately, but I don't do that all year long necessarily. Or some of you are going to be working out mid-morning. I sometimes do that. But try and get your core body temperature increased first thing in the morning. And a great way to do that is with the cold water and or with exercise. And again, it doesn't have to be your full-blown workout for the day if you're doing workouts consistently, which I hope everybody is, because everybody really should exercise at least, I believe, 5 or 6 or maybe even 7 days a week. For me, it's 6 days a week, sometimes 5. Rarely is it 7. So get that exercise or even just a modest amount of movement, walking, jogging, skipping rope, some light calisthenics. That will further increase your core body temperature and help you feel more awake. Then we have the category of caffeine. And again, we're just talking about this early part of the day. And you might be saying, wait a second, I thought this was an episode about tools for sleep. Well, everything that we're talking about doing in these first 60 to 90 minutes of the day really set in motion a wave of biological cascades that carry through the entire day and into the evening and into the night and really do serve to optimize sleep. So just hang in there with me. And for those of you that are interested in focus and attention, your ability to learn, all of these tools and practices are going to greatly enhance those as well. So the next category of tool for use early in the day is caffeine. Caffeine is a very important compound to think about. I do realize that some people who are prone to anxiety, especially panic attacks and anxiety attacks, might avoid caffeine entirely. That's absolutely fine. You do not have to drink caffeine. So what I'm about to describe are ways to leverage caffeine use to optimize sleep and wakefulness if you are comfortable with caffeine, if you like caffeine. I happen to love caffeine. I like it in the form of coffee or espresso or yerba mate tea, in particular non-smoked varieties of yerba mate teas. Non-smoked because the smoked varieties seem to carry some carcinogenic, some cancer-causing risk. There's increasing data on that. So non-smoked varieties of yerba mate. So caffeine is something that a lot of people consume early in the day. How much depends on your tolerance, and there's a lot of individual variability here. Again, caffeine is a adenosine antagonist, or effectively works as a adenosine antagonist and limits sleepiness. I highly recommend that everybody delay their caffeine intake for 90 to 120 minutes after waking. However painful it may be to eventually arrive at that 90 to 120 minutes after waking, you want, and I encourage you to clear out whatever residual adenosine is circulating in your system in that first 90 to 120 minutes of the day. Get that sunlight exposure, get some movement to wake up, and then, and only then, start to ingest caffeine. Because what you'll do if you delay caffeine intake until 90 to 120 minutes after waking is you will avoid this so-called afternoon crash. And you may still get a little bit of dip in energy in the afternoon, but it's not going to be that massive crash. I've talked about the reasons for that crash on previous episodes, but if you delay your caffeine intake 90 to 120 minutes after waking, you are doing yourself a great service towards wakefulness and to avoid the crash. And the afternoon crash has another liability to it, which is typically people will emerge from that afternoon crash either grumpy or groggy, and then they'll lean into drinking more caffeine, which can then disrupt their sleep. So wait 90 to 120 minutes after waking in the morning to drink caffeine. And if you drink caffeine at any point throughout the day, really try and avoid any caffeine. Certainly avoid drinking more than 100 milligrams of caffeine after 4 p.m. and probably even better to limit your last caffeine intake to 3 p.m. or even 2 p.m. And for many people, shifting that caffeine intake from immediately after waking in the morning to 90 to 120 minutes gives them a much longer arc of energy throughout the day, and they don't feel the need to drink more caffeine later in the afternoon. If you do drink caffeine later in the afternoon, really try and limit the total amount or drink decaf. Certainly keep the total amount to less than 100 milligrams if you are interested in getting into the best possible sleep. And I say this knowing that many people, including myself, can drink a double espresso with 200 milligrams of caffeine or more at 5 p.m. or even 6 p.m. or after dinner and still, quote unquote, fall asleep fine or still sleep fine. However, there are terrific data. Matt Walker and I talked about this, and there are more and more papers all the time that point to the fact that caffeine intake late in the day, after 4 p.m. that is, can really disrupt the architecture of your sleep. So you might think you're sleeping well, but you're not sleeping nearly as well as you could if you avoided caffeine in those afternoon hours.